In this particular tutorial, we're going to be looking at brushes in Photoshop and how we can use them. You'll be getting to grips with layers a little bit more, and we'll start to see the gradient tool being used and the paint bucket as well. So let's get started. If you look down the toolbar on the left hand side where all your tools live, you'll see a brush, and when you click that you get a whole new toolbar appear across the top of the screen. If you click on here, you'll see what brushes exist. We've got some solid brushes, we've got some paint brushes and pencils for if you're actually touching up images. We've got some speckledy brushes and some splatter style brushes. We've got some leaves and some cartoon style leaves. We can change the size of the brush at the top, and then we just click on the background. Now note that I've actually made a new layer above the background. If you want to create a new layer, layer, new layer. It's as intuitive as that. Alternatively, you can click the new layer tool. Now it's important we do that because when we decide we don't want the leaves, we can put that layer into the bin. Now, if there's no brushes in that menu that take your fancy, then you want to get yourself onto the internet and search Google for Photoshop brushes. Now, there are literally thousands of pages. The first one that usually comes up is Brush Easy, and it's one that I personally like because it doesn't really involve looking for it. And they've got, you know, hundreds and hundreds of brushes involved on their website. Now, I found two that I particularly liked. One was the Kaleidoscope Brush, and one was the Grunge Brush. I downloaded those files and they come as ABR files. So we've got one Kaleidoscope and one Grunge. If we go back to Photoshop, we need to import them brushes. Now, there's a few ways we can import them. We can open up the brush menu just here and click the arrow and go to load brushes and then point it to the desktop and grab the two brushes. We can do it that way. We can click on this arrow and go to preset manager and we can load them in as a preset, bring them in that way. Or the simplest way that I'm going to show you is to just double click them straight from the desktop and open up this brush menu. You'll see that I've got an additional brush set that's appeared, and if I just click on there you'll see the brush is painted away, and I'm going to load in those Kaleidoscope brushes as well into Photoshop, and we'll see the kaleidoscopes have appeared. So we've got colours down the bottom here. If I choose the colour that's most prominent, that's the foreground colour, the one behind that is the background colour. You can see that's going to create some sort of visual style kaleidoscope. I'm going to try and put everything that I do onto a new layer so you can see what I'm doing. Let's go for a nasty sort of murky green colour. Now, if you go into your window menu and you choose brush, you'll get a whole new world of brush presets. Now, in particular, what we're looking at here is this tool here, which changes the angle of the brushes. So I can overlay that over the top. You maybe won't see it as well with that brush. If we took something like what we've got here, I should probably look at these brushes in advance, shouldn't I? Something like that will work quite nicely to show you. If I make a new layer, and I'll do one in red, and I'll do one in yellow to really make it stand out for you. One in red, so I'm going to just stamp it there, and click it a few times so you can really see what's going on. Like I say, I'll do one in yellow. More gold than yellow. Just going to change the angle just slightly, take it back towards the same point to get the centre the same. You can see we can turn the brushes round. Let's go for a slightly greener. Go up through the colour balance. Put that over the top. You can see that we can create quite nice visual effects if that's the sort of effect we're aiming for. Now, the brushes that you use will completely depend on the effect you're trying to get. Now, the reason I got the grunge brushes was so that I could show you how we do text effects, very basic text effects. So to create this, all I've done, I've got a grunge brush, I've got the colour black as my foreground colour, I've got a black background on the image, I've got a bit of text that says splatter in quite a comic-y font, and then I've got a new layer over the top of that. And all I'm going to do with this paintbrush selected is paint. I'll paint a little bit more. And straight away you can see that we've added a little bit of a splatter to that. It brings, you know, it hides the text a little bit more, it makes it look a little bit darker. If I turn that layer 1 off, just to show you, it's nice and white to start with, then we've hidden it a little bit. Now, if we'd made the background colour quite a sort of crimson red, and we'd made the brush a crimson red as well, then it could have maybe made it look slightly blood-like. You could have followed the horror genre with that. But these are all small tools and small techniques for you to play with. The last thing I'm going to show you in this tutorial, I've got a new canvas. It's white. I think I set it up at 500 by 500 pixels. excuse me, but you can set it up to be whatever size you'd like it to be. I'm going to look for the paint bucket in my toolbar. I'm going to click and hold, and I'm going to find the gradient tool. What the gradient allows me to do, I can choose a preset gradient, or I can click inside it and choose the colours I'd like it to move between. So let's say I'm going to go from this sort of lilac-y colour over to this blue colour. Actually, I'm going to put the blue in the middle. Let's just click that handle. I keep missing it. Click on that handle. No, it doesn't want to be clicked, does it? There we go. Bring that blue into the middle, and then I'm going to go back to this lilac colour on the edge. I haven't much luck with this mouse today. Okay, and then if I just bring them handles in, that'll control how far the blue actually goes. And yeah, that's fine. I'm happy with that gradient. Now, the way that a gradient works, I'm just going to make a new layer again so I can leave the background layer alone. Whatever direction I draw that line in, it's going to draw the gradient in. If I draw a short line, it'll draw a very short gradient. If I draw a long line, it'll draw a very long gradient. I can choose whether I want the gradient to be continual or whether I want it to be focused around making the gradient in the centre and create a circular gradient. I can do that very small, or again I can do that absolutely massive so that we don't really see it. We can do flag style gradients. We can change it up using these different tools. And there are other ways to do gradients other than this, but this is the basic beginner's way to do gradients. So we've created this background. I'm going to make another new layer and I'm going to fill that in black. So instead of using the gradient, I'm just going to grab the paint bucket and I'm just going to click over the top. So at the moment we've got a background layer. Let's turn them off. We've got a white background layer. We have a gradient over the top of that, which is layer 1, and a solid black layer over the top of that, which is layer 2. Now the trick here to what I want to do is I'm going to erase part of the area in layer 2. When we erase that, it's going to go transparent, so we're going to see the grey and white checkers. So I'm going to get the eraser tool. Now this is one of the good uses for the eraser. When we choose the eraser tool, it allows us to choose from our brushes. So I can go straight into the brushes and I can choose a Kaleidoscope Brush. Now I'm going to use this brush preset on the right hand menu and I'm going to make it bigger. You can also right click on the screen and it will come up with this menu as well. You always need to be careful when clicking off. So I've got layer 2 turned on, none of my other layers are turned on. When I click, it's going to create transparency through the middle. Okay, that grey and white checker is a transparency. If I turn on the background layer, it will fill that transparency in white. But more importantly, if I turn on layer 1, we'll see the gradient coming through. And effectively what I've done, I've created a stencil. Okay, now I can take layer 1 and I can go back and get my gradient tool. And I can change my gradient to be, now none of the presets are that great in Photoshop. You have to make your own to make them good. So just for the sake of showing you, there we go. We can create something quite colourful, quite bold, and try and get that colour fill just in the middle, a bit bigger. That's not having it today. Come on. Okay, you get the idea from what I'm doing. We can use brushes to create designs and images. We can also use brushes with the eraser tool to take areas of images away. You can have quite a play with that. So that rounds up this session. You've used the brush tool, you've imported brushes, you've looked at the preset brush manager, you've also used fill layers, you've used gradient layers, and you've used the eraser tool. Quite successful, really.